When I was 12, my father was hit and killed by a drunk driver, and our family was forced to survive on welfare because my dad didn't have insurance. And my mother was in the car. She had many internal injuries and broken bones, and so it took many months for her to recover. And there was another family that took us in, allowed us to live with them after the accident. You know, as a 12-year-old boy, I struggled because, I just couldn't understand how now we were sentenced to a life of poverty, and meanwhile, the man who hit my father walked out of jail 48 hours later, and there was no consequence, and it just didn't seem just to me. But the people we were living with, all they had was a single wide trailer. They were very kind people, though. They wrapped their arms around us, and one day, the father, Bill Davis, who we were living with, he saw that I was really hurting, and he came and he threw his arms around my shoulder, and he just said, "Hey, Hal, listen to me. Don't allow the tragedy of your youth to become a lifelong excuse, because where you start in life doesn't have to dictate where you end." And those words were really empowering to me. During those times, I also experienced the power of kindness, because so many people in our community would come and they would give us groceries. When you're poor, your goal in life becomes, your quest becomes not to live in poverty. And so I went and got my degree in journalism. And I began writing books in my 20s. I received a book assignment that took me to Calcutta, India. And when I arrived, my host said, "There's someone we want you to interview." And they took me to meet Mother Teresa. And in the course of that interview, Mother Teresa asked me, she said, "Young man, what are you doing to help the poor and the suffering?" And I figured I better not lie to her, right? And so I told her the truth. I said, "I'm really not doing much of anything." And she said, "Well, everyone can do something. Just do the next kind thing in front of you." And that really haunted me. Came back to the States and loaded up a pickup truck with groceries, $300 worth of groceries, went out and started passing them out to working poor families. And that was the start of Convoy of Hope 25 years ago. That pickup truck became a box truck, and then eventually became a semi-truck, and then a fleet of semi-trucks, from not having a warehouse then to having multiple warehouses. And it's just been an amazing 25 years of growth. And I thought, well, what would it look like if I wrote a book on how to move your life from a burden or a desire to do something to really doing something, and be very transparent with the mistakes I've made along the way, the discouraging times, the hard times, give people a playbook for how to make their life count. And so that was the beginning stages of the book. It's called Disruptive Compassion, Becoming the Revolutionary You Were Born to Be. And it talks about how do we disrupt our lives, our everyday lives, in such a way that it changes us, but also changes the status quo, and it changes the people around us.